Hi there, welcome to this video where I'm going to show you how you can create your own AI RAG application using absolutely zero code. If you don't know what RAG is or why you might want to use it, then I have a video. I will link it down below and you can check that out if you want to know what RAG is, how it works, why you might use it. However, today we're just going to be doing the implementing. So what we're going to create is we're going to create a F1, a Formula One themed RAG application, which is we're going to be able to upsert some information, some of our own information about F1, and then we're going to be able to query that to get custom responses back. I am going to be using bubble.io to build this app. So it's going to be a website that anyone can access. We're then going to be using OpenAI as the thing that's going to be creating the embeddings, but also what's the language model that's going to be actually generating the end result. And then we're going to be using Pinecone as the vector database. So to show you what I've got already, I've created a very, very, very simple page on Bubble, which has got two sides to it. It's got the query side. Oh, let me turn that off. It's got the query side, which is going to show us this, where we can essentially ask something. And it's got the upsert side, where we can input information. Upsert is just a combination of update and insert. So it's putting information into the database. So we can put information in with upsert, and then we can query information with the query side of things. So the first step that we're going to do is we're going to go to Bubble. This is not going to be a super in-depth Bubble tutorial because it's more about RAG than Bubble. However, I've got more Bubble tutorials on this channel you can check out if you are interested in that. So the first thing we're going to want to do is come to plugins, and we want to make sure that we've got the API connector plugin installed. If not, just go add plugins and it'll probably be the top one, or just search API connector. And we are going to create four API calls to two different services. So we're going to add a service, and the first one is going to be OpenAI. Okay, then in the header, we're going to want authorization because every single one of our calls is going to have authorization, and we're going to have bearer, and then we need to get an API key from OpenAI. So hopefully you've already got an account with OpenAI. If you don't, then go to platform.openai.com. This is a developer account where you can get API keys rather than just a normal account. So if you've used ChatGPT before, but you don't have an API key, you need to create an account on platform.openai.com. So once you're here, once you're signed in, come over to settings, then on the left-hand side, go API keys, and we're going to create a new one. I'm going to call it F1 RAG, create a new secret, copy that. I'm going to delete this after the video, just in case someone was thinking about stealing it. And then I'm going to come to bearer, paste it in there, and there we have it. Okay, so the first one we're going to create is the embedding. So we're going to call this one get embeddings, and it's going to be an action, and it's going to be a post request. And the endpoint for this is going to be this. So you can pause this video, copy it. It's the embeddings endpoint that we're going for. Then the body is very simple. Again, I'm going to paste it in here. You can have a look at it. We are passing in two parameters in the body, an input, which is going to be the text that we want converting, and then which model we want to use to convert it. So there are different models which will convert text into embeddings being the long string of numbers. That we'll do it in different ways. This time we're going to use the text embedding Ada 2 version. And let me just bring this over here to neaten it up. Okay, I'm going to take private off, and then in here we're going to say Formula One is the world's most popular racing series. Okay, let's give it a call and see if it works. Yes, there we go. Okay, so if we go show raw data, we can see this is our list of embeddings. Embeddings being the text converted into a string of numbers which represent that text, which is how vector databases work. Again, if you need any information on this, go and watch the other video. So I believe there's like 1,500 different numbers, but that's coming back correctly, so that is fine. We're going to save that. Okay, so that's one of the OpenAI API calls that we need. Let's go ahead and create the other one. The other one is simply a chat response. So I'm going to call it GPT-4o mini because that's the one that we're going to be using. Oh, I can't type today. We're going to make it an action. It's going to be a post. The endpoint I'm going to paste in here. It is very similar apart from, if I compare it to embeddings, it's got V1 and V1, and we go chat completions rather than just embeddings. But very similar. We've already got the authorization in the shared header, so we don't need to include that. We just need the body. So I'm going to paste that in here. And the few things which we're passing in is very simply which model we want to use. So 4.0 mini at the moment, because that's the most cost-effective one at the moment. And then we are just passing in a context message and a query. So a user message and a system message. If we click away from that, let's make both of these non-private. And we can just put in here, you are a helpful assistant. That's going to be fine for now. And then just to test, we can say, what is 4 plus 5? And let's initialize that, see if we've got everything correct. Okay, I just had to reload my page, but I'm going to initialize it again. And there we go. Not sure why it didn't do it the first time, but this time it's done it fine. And let's just check. Yeah, there we go. 4 plus 5 equals 9. Good. So that's all working. Okay, so those are the two OpenAI AI calls that we need. We're getting the embeddings, and we are just having a normal chat completion. Great. So now we can create the API call for Pinecone, which is what we're going to be using as a vector database. So let me create a new one, call it Pinecone, and we need to add a few things in the header. First of all, we need the API key. And with Pinecone, this is simply API key, and then we're going to get this from Pinecone. So if you haven't signed up with Pinecone, then just go to pinecone.io, sign up. You can sign up for a free account, and you get some reasonable limits in your free account. You're going to come to a page like this. Then you want to go over to the left-hand side, go API keys, go create new key, and I'm going to call this one F1 rag, and create the key. And then we're going to copy it, come back over to Bubble and put that in here. We don't need the bearer in this one. We just pop it straight in. Then also in the header, we need the version that we want to use of the API. I'm going to paste the key in here, which is x-pinecone-api-version. And the version we're going to use is the January one, so 2025-01. This is the most recent stable API from Pinecone. Okay, now we can get on to building our calls. So we want two calls because we've got two things we want to do here. We want to query and upsert, and those are going to be our two calls. So first, we're going to create an upsert. Let me open it up and call it upsert, change it to action, and change it to post. Okay, now to get the endpoint, we're going to need to go over to Pinecone. We're going to close this. We're going to go to database, and I'm going to see something that looks like this. We're going to create an index, and we're going to give it any name you want. I'm going to call it F1 rag. Okay, it can only be lowercase, so let's go F1 rag. There we go. Then the configuration. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to click on text embed ADA 2. And that's going to automatically put in the dimensions. This is the really important thing when it comes to configuration, is that we have the same number of dimensions as the embedding model produces. So if you use different embedding models, let's say yes. So if we use this one from OpenAI, which is a more expensive one, but also it means it's more accurate, you'll see it's got 3,000 dimensions. So it's got 3,000 numbers which it can use to describe text, whereas the one that we're going to use, just to keep it simple, is this one, which has only got 1,500. So for this example, because we are using, let's scroll back up, because we're using this model here, we're going to click the same one on Pinecone. Okay, so serverless, that's fine. AWS, fine. Create index. It's going to take a second to initialize, but what we want is this host URL. We're going to copy this, come over to Bubble, scroll back down to Pinecone, and here in the Upsert one that we just created, we're going to paste that in here, and then go / vectors / Upsert. Okay, then we just need to pass in the body. So I'm going to copy and paste this. And what you can see here is we're just putting in vectors, but the vectors have got several properties. First one being ID, then the value, which is actually the embedding itself, so that long series of numbers, and then the metadata, which is going to be the actual text that we're linking to that. Hopefully this is going to make sense. So I'm going to click away, make these non-private, and the ID for now, when we're just setting up this API call, we're going to make it 1, 2, 3, 4. The text, we're going to say F1 is the, in fact, what did I say on the, let's copy it from here. Formula 1 is the world's most popular racing series. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to paste that in here. Not that it really matters when setting up, but why not? But what we do need to do is reinitialize this. Give it a second. Go show raw data, and then we need to copy this embedding, because in order to set up the API call, we need to pass in a real embedding with 1500 numbers within it. So let's select all of this, including the square brackets at the end and the start, save it, come down to values and paste that in. Now it's going to have like spaces in between. That's absolutely fine. That should be everything we need. So if we click initialize, give it a second. Okay, great. It's come back with upserted count 1. So it is upserted 1 item into our database. So we can now go across, and it says no records yet, but if I reload it, sometimes it just takes a minute or two, or less than a minute. Let's see if we can see it yet. It's thinking about it. Not yet, but give it a couple more minutes. It's going to show there. Usually it's much quicker. The first one seems to take a little bit longer. There we go. Formula One is the world's most popular racing series. So we can see that we've got the ID, we've got the text, and the whole thing has a vector embeddings to it as well, that big long number. Okay, so just one more API call to create, and then we can actually start building with it. So let's collapse this. And actually I can, I'll duplicate this. And we're going to call this one query. Oops, open it up and call it query. And then I just need to change this here to query. And then I need to change the body. So the body I'm going to replace with this. So it looks like I haven't got the top one in. Let's put that in. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so what we've got in here is we're just passing in the vector. That's the only thing we're passing in. Top K is how many results we want. And then we want to include both the metadata and the values. So that's fine. We want to pass that in. So we are going to take this off private. And again, we need that vector. So I'm going to come back up to Upsert, copy this and paste that. So if this is working correctly, we are going to find the result. There's only one result in our database, but we're going to find the result which most closely matches this vector. And the only one in there should be exactly this vector. So what we should see returned is Formula One is the world's most popular racing series. So if I reinitialize, and there we go. Formula One is the world's most popular racing series. Great. So all of our API calls are working correctly, which means we can now just hook them up. So if we go over to the front end, the first thing we want to do is create the upsertion side. So if I open this up, I've got it over here in a little group. We want to, when this button is pressed, takes this text, we want to create an embedding, then pass that embedding over to Pinecone to put in the database. So if we click on Upsert, click on Add Workflow, we want to first create an embeddings. So OpenAI get embeddings, and the input is going to be from that multi-line input I've got here. So Upsert input. So I'm going to copy that name, come back over here, and put that in there. Okay, so we've getting that embeddings, then we need to push it over to Pinecone. So we're going to go Upsert, Pinecone Upsert. Okay, so what we need to put in here is we're going to put just a random ID. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to go current time date, and then we're going to do extract, and we're going to go Unix timestamp. So that's going to give us the timestamp, and the timestamp is going to be the ID. Since we're not uploading loads and loads and loads of bits of data at one time, that's going to be fine. If you were, then maybe that's not the best format to use. But since we're only upserting, small amounts, it's going to be fine. So the values, so the embedding, we're going to take from step number 1. That's going to be data, first item, and embedding. And then the text, again, is going to be that input. So if I copy this from step number 1, it's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to paste that in here. There we go. Then all I'm going to do is I'm going to have a toast notification, which is going to be success. I'm going to call it Upserted. Take away that. This is just a plugin which I've got installed called Toasty Notifications Free. You'll see what it does. Just tells us that it's successfully done that thing. And then the last thing we need to do is just reset the relevant inputs. Okay, so I think that should be all we need to do for the upsertion side of things. So let's reload this. So if we go over to Upsert, we should now be able to paste in something, and I'm going to paste in some information about F1, about Max Verstappen in this case. I'm going to enter in some more information about other drivers, but to show you this example, We're going to go step by step. We're going to go upsert, and hopefully this works. So the first step is we're taking this text and we are converting it into an embedding with OpenAI. So we're going to go next, and then here we can see that is the embedding from the text. So we are upserting this embedding, this timestamp, and then this is the text associated with this embedding. So that looks like it is running fine. So the toasty is now going to pop up, and then it's going to reset this. So I can just run it as normal. And then we go upserted, and it has cleared. So I'm going to upload or upsert a few more bits of information about F1, and then we can go over and wire up the query side. Actually, before I do that, let me just show you the back end on Pinecone, so we can see that actually has appeared now on Pinecone. So if I come down, give it a second to load, you'll see that we've got two records. We've got that first one that we did when we were setting up the API, and then we've got this one here, which we just did just now. Okay, so I'm going to upload some more information or upsert some more information, and then we'll come and do the querying side of things. Okay, so I'm uploading this last bit of information, so I'm going to upsert this, and then we're going to have a look at Pinecone, and we can see that we have got, let me reload it. We've got 10 in there, but only 2 showing. So I'll reload it so we can see. We have got 10 bits of information about different F1 drivers there. Okay, great. So now we are going to get the query side of things working. Because at the moment, if we type something in here, it doesn't work, right? Nothing's working. So let's go over and wire that side up. So if we go to the query group, let's hide this. All I've got here is just a query button, an input and an output group with the text linked to the output group. So what I'm going to do is when this query button is pressed, what we want to do is we want to turn the question or the query into an embedding. So we're going to go embedding, get embeddings. This time it's going to be the query input, which I have named query input. Okay, so we're getting the embedding. Then we are going to query Pinecone with our query API call that we created. And the only thing we need to input here is the embeddings from step number 1. So we're going to go step number 1, data, first items, embedding. So that's now going to return, well, at the moment, just one response. However, if we go over to plugins and we go to query, if we wanted 2 responses, then we can change top K from 1 to 2. The more responses you get, the more information you're going to be giving to your AI model to create a response with. So it's going to be probably more accurate. However, it's going to be more expensive as well because you're feeding more information into the large language model. There's a lot more to get into with RAG than what I'm showing here. This is very beginning, very basics. So where were we? So connecting it all up. What we're going to do then, when we get back our one result, we want to go over to GPT-4 and the context. We're going to keep this as your helpful RAG assistant. Again, because this is very simple, that's fine. However, if I was running this as a production app, I would definitely change this to be something that actually helps get better responses, but that's fine for now. In the query, I'm going to put arbitrary text, and I'm going to say the question was, and then I'm going to find the query input and put that there. Then I'm going to leave some space for a few lines, and then I'm going to say the data returned by the RAG model is, and then I go step number 2, matches first item since, in fact, I'll tell you what, I'll go each item's metadata text, because that's what the actual text is going to be. I'm going to go split by, and I'm going to split by several lines. So just enter several times. Now, because we've only got a top K of 1 here, this is only going to return one answer. So actually each item is always going to be 1. However, if we change that to 2, this will equally work. So that's going to be fine. So we are getting a response. Then we need to display that response in the output group. So we're just going to go step number 3, choices, first item, content, and then we're going to go reset relevant inputs. Okay, so let's reload this. Let's see if we've got it all correct and all working. So if I say, tell me about George Russell. I'm going to step through this step by step. If we go query, we can see that the first step is taking tell me about George Russell and getting the embeddings. Then the next step is taking that embedding and going off to Pinecone to find the nearest neighbor, the best match. Then we go to OpenAI, and the input that we have here is tell me about George Russell, and then it says the data returned is, and then our exact bit of information that we upserted to Pinecone. So if we zoom in, we can see George Russell driving from Mercedes, Russell, and that's exactly the same as, if we scroll down, where is it here? It's exactly the same here. And this is the power of RAG, is that you can choose, or you're not exactly choosing, but you are directly influencing which information goes into getting a response. So rather than just any old information getting pulled about George Russell, we are pulling the information which we've upserted. I'm not sure how good of an explanation that was, but hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so we've got that response. That was our input, and the output is going to be, if we go next, the output is this bit here. Actually, let me just run it through and we'll see it. So there we go. And we can see that it is using the information that we upserted to give us an answer. So it's not just taking any old information from the web, but it's actually using information which we've upserted to give us an answer. We can also say something like, tell me about Lewis Hamilton. And it's going to use this information which we fed it, such as him moving to Ferrari and him having wins at Silverstone and Spa. So it's using information that we fed it. So hopefully here you can see the use of RAG in being able to get responses from AI using our own information rather than just relying on OpenAI's data set. So this has been a very basic introduction to creating AI RAG applications, but we can see that we've got a web page that works, which can use our own data set to give us back information about anything. Now, this is just about Formula One, but you could see that you could upload information about mortgages, and then you could put in your information and see which mortgages you qualify for and which ones you don't. So hopefully this quick introductory has been useful, and now you understand a little bit more about RAG and how you can create your own RAG application. If you have any questions, please leave them below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.